Of course, so that clearly the debt covenants being relaxed would mean that the cost of the loans would go up. Shashabri Rao of GSW confirming that his loan would go up by about 1% if those covenants were actually relaxed. Moving on from the commodity space to the IT sector, in fact, that's been in the focus after the run-up that we saw in the stocks yesterday. But the question is, does the market gains actually reflect that there could be some revivals in the IT sector? To find that out, we've got Diptarup Chakraborty, Principal Analyst of Gartner, who joins us from our Imagine Studios. Thank you very much, Mr. Chakraborty, for joining us this morning on NDTV Profit. Just to get started, we did see a decent run-up in the stocks in yesterday's trading session when we talk about the IT sector. But could this be backed by fundamentals? Are you seeing any revival in IT going currently?
Well, to answer the question, I think the answer would be a no. Right now, it's too early to say whether there's a revival fundamentally in the IT sector. Just to give you a perspective, there was the impact of the crisis was slightly delayed on the Silicon Valley, which is represented by the IT sector. And I think the revival also, if there is any, will also take some time. We don't expect some real revival, and I'm talking about real revival, not just one or two deals before the Q3 of this year.
Right, so just to get a sense of what we've been hearing from a couple of managements who have indicated a couple of early signs of positive trends. One, that whatever pricing pressure had to come in has already been taken in terms of the pricing pressures. Also, the fact that they are seeing some revival in pipeline, at least the IT budgets have been finalized, and they do think that the pipeline will start to pick up towards the second half of the year. So, from that sense, at least once again, could we infer that the bottom for the IT companies is firmly in place?
Yes, that I agree. I think the bottom, they have reached the bottom and perhaps even climbing away out of it. But to paint hunky-dory pictures and to say that the worst is behind us. Yes, the worst is behind us. But to say that everything is now going to be business as usual would not be right, because there are certain issues, like for example, Indian IT industry is heavily dependent on the US markets, and even though there may be some pipeline enrichment happening, but the US economy is still not on the way to recovery, and neither is the Western European countries. There is some domestic revival happening, but most of the Indian IT service companies do not play in this space, at least not significantly. So we have to be a little cautious before we say that it is to paint a rosier picture. But yes, the worst is definitely behind us.
Just to, since you mentioned the US, one of the most topical issues is the entire tax issue that's coming in from the US. Do you think, come what may, the overseas income for these IT companies is going to be firmly and more strongly in the tax net, and hence they need to keep that in mind as they sort of develop their business models?
I would not be able to comment exactly on the taxation issue because we haven't tracked that closely. But I can say that whatever policy initiatives been taken in the US and regarding the taxations, regarding the H1B issue that was going on recently, and so on and so forth, there would be some impact, but I think it will be marginal, because outsourcing is or the model that they work is almost mandatory. You have to do it to have competitive advantages over your competitive advantage, both for American companies as well as for Indian companies based in US. So there are going to be pitfalls. It's going to be slightly more difficult for the IT industry to operate in the same space, yes, but I think the capabilities are there to work around it.
Right, sir, just to talk a little bit more about downsizing, because that's a concern that's been talked about. In fact, you had Steve Ballmer of Microsoft who actually said that they're looking at they have downsized in India. You had Infosys as well that's looking at salary cuts. So how does this whole downsizing issue in IT firms actually pan out going forward?
Well, the situation is grim. A lot of IT companies, without naming anyone over here, have still not honored some of their offer that they made in the campus. And when they have been told that it will be June, July, some of them been told it will be October when you can come on board. So the situation is grim. Yes, some big companies have retrenched people and have still perhaps will be there. But I feel that the big chunk downsizing which was to happen has happened because they have taken the worst into picture. I must make one point very clear over here. See, the IT industry recruits on a basis of an 18-month window, which means they recruit today taking into account what will be the growth 18 months down the line. So when they recruited 18 months back, the picture was very rosy. Now that rosy picture is gone away, disappeared. So obviously there will be some downsizing happen, which you are seeing. Microsoft, as you know, as you took the example of Microsoft, announced their plans to retrench people almost 4 to 5 months back, and you're seeing the impact now. So that all that impact, I think all the cleaning up has happened to a large extent. Maybe one-off cases you might still hear here and there, but a large extent it has happened. And as I said, recruitment might not happen, but the downsizing has kind of stopped.
Mr. Chakrabarti, I have one last question, which is slightly peripheral, but an interesting trend that's picking up, and a lot of IT executives are talking about the fact that buying into captives is something that could be an interesting opportunity at this stage. What do you make of that? Do you see a lot more IT companies going in for that route?
I think so. Consolidation, mergers and acquisition perhaps would be a way forward, and not just small ticket acquisitions. I perhaps see maybe some large ticket acquisitions happening. I mean, it might be difficult to name who will buy whom, but to gain, I mean, the big three or the big six IT companies are no longer competing among themselves. They are competing with the IBMs and Accentures and the HPs of the world. For them, they need scale. And for how do you get scale overnight is by mergers and acquisitions. So I think that makes excellent business sense. The only thing which you have to see is whether there is liquidity in the market for them to do that, and whether they have that will and the the courage to do it.
Right. Thanks so much indeed. Good to get your views here on the IT sector, which is, along with other sectors, going through a lot of fundamental changes. We're taking a quick break. More on the other side.